Omegle or Omegle? That is the only thing we're talking about today. How do we pronounce the name of that service or site, which is now sadly dead?
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
I don't know if I change position. It's a complicated issue. I feel like I moved on it throughout the course of the past 12 minutes, but we'll see.
Yeah, you go from Omegle to Omegle.
Yes.
No, we're actually talking about the service itself and content moderation and what's the right thing to do and why was it shut down and all sorts of things behind it. So
It's a
interesting episode. Check it out.
controversy ensues.
Controversy.
What? Have you ever used Omegle, Peter?
Yeah, I've tried
Oh,
it.
you have?
And Chatterbait and all of them. Not Chatterbait. I
Wait, what? Are those the same thing?
I think basically, right? They're just
okay. Cool. So at any rate, I've never used it,
okay.
but I've watched YouTubers who like the guys who like play piano or Harry Mack, a rapper, who will like go record Omegle sessions where they're like blowing people away with their skills. And that's what I know about it. So I guess you connect with somebody kind of randomly, have a little interaction. If they want to leave, they leave. If they want to stay, you chat. And they're going away.
I get this sense that there's a whole sort of section or part of the internet experience that may have passed you by.
Yeah. This is our segment, Boomers Explain Modern Social Media.
I'm a millennial, man.
Boomers explain social media. I'm Gen. You are not a millennial. You're Gen X, just like I am. Give it up.
Anyway, basically, there is a whole load of people on the internet who liked to use it for connecting with new people. So Usenet or news groups where you would chat to people and make friends and kind of from a community that you didn't know, or you would connect with others and develop social relationships through the internet. Back in the day, when I first got on the internet, there was a thing called talkers, and they would buy like multi-user dungeons where you go around and kill monsters in text, but they were just for talking. You could have different rooms. You go up, down, or north, east, west, and whoever was in that room, and you talk to them, you talk to them. There was IRC, which is, I mean, all these things are still around, but they're just not very popular anymore. And then, I don't know. So Omegle, which I say in my head is Omegle, is one of these things. It's just a way of connecting with random people. There's a really interesting, and I don't think you ever did this, right? I don't think you ever kind of had that thing, did you?
With Omegle specifically, or just?
No, with anything. I mean.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I mean, so I guess I was involved in some. Oh shit! What did I like? Not IRC. It was even before that. It was like a dial-up modem. You would dial into some kind of room and have people that you were chatting with.
Like BBS's.
Yeah. Right.
So long ago, you can't remember the name.
God, it was so long ago. Yeah, like the bulletin board services. But then really, I kind of jumped ahead probably 5 or 6 years to the AOL type interactions where. Similar idea. You ended up. I don't know how did. I don't remember how I met people on AOL Instant Messenger, but like I remember getting connected with strangers somehow.
We kind of have the same thing. We have a little tiny Discord server. Everybody join it and just click subscribe, and then go. I'm going to join Discord and come and say hi. We have a little Discord server with a few regulars on there. It's not one of these big ones. We're not a big channel, but the people who've been on there who've been on there for a few months, like I feel like they're kind of our friends, and we've never met most of these people before, and yeah, I guess it's still happening, I suppose, in a way.
And so this was so the point of this article is.
Oh yeah, let's talk about the actual
the service Omegle started in 2009 by this guy Leaf K. What was his name? Leaf K. Brooks. Talks about why he started it. At 19 years old, he felt like he needed more social connection, wanted to meet new people. So he started this site where people could have these safe interactions because you weren't locked into something. You didn't know the other person. If you wanted to just bounce out, you could do it. There was no risk there. And he thought this was very valuable to the internet, but also found that people would abuse it, like any tool on the internet. This is why we can't have nice things. So he writes this really nice letter on Omegle.com about why he's shutting down this service that's been running for quite some time. And he says, I believe in a responsibility to be a good Samaritan and to implement reasonable measures to fight crime and other misuse. That is exactly what Omegle did. In addition to the basic safety feature of anonymity, there was a great deal of moderation behind the scenes, including state-of-the-art AI operating in concert with a wonderful team of human moderators. Omegle punched above its weight in content moderation, and I'm proud of what we accomplished. Which, content moderation is one of the biggest challenges that social media platforms face.
Yeah.
And this is, we see this with Twitter, we see this with Facebook. Once you get to a certain size, you have to deal with this. Yeah. It does put you in an editorial position, and it is a really, really, really hard problem to solve, especially at scale.
Yeah.
And then going back to the article, Omegle's moderation even had a positive impact beyond the site. We worked with law enforcement agencies and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children to help put evildoers in prison where they belong. There are people rotting behind bars right now, thanks in part to evidence that Omegle proactively collected against them. But he goes on to talk about how kind of disappointed he is that they continue to receive criticism, continue to struggle with these challenges. And at the end of the article, he references the EFF and how everybody should support the EFF, which makes it like the EFF is often invoked in cases of like government censorship, right? So that's why I started, like, I was curious, like, what was he actually responding to? What was the thing that actually made him shut down Omegle? So I went looking at, what happened with Omegle? Why are they shutting down? I found this New York Times article. It says the founder of Omegle, Leif K. Brooks, said in a letter he posted to the site's homepage that we were just reading, that despite his efforts to foster a community that could alleviate feelings of loneliness or spur connections, the crimes and misuses that had taken place had made the operations, quoting the article, no longer sustainable financially or psychologically. So reading that sentence, why did he take down the site, Peter?
I mean, probably because of a high-profile case that was just a massive pain in the ass.
He says, the crimes and misuses that had taken place made its operations no longer sustainable financially or psychologically. To me, that sounds like he just couldn't live with what was happening on the site anymore. They couldn't keep up with moderation. It was just being abused too much, and he had to step away from it.
I mean, that's kind of the what? Go on.
Well, go ahead.
That's the impression I got
from the article,
from his,
from his letter.
Yeah.
So he doesn't actually come out and say that like the government shut him down or dealing with the government became unbearable. But he did.
Sorry, go on.
He did reference the EFF at the end, and so I started with this idea of like the stress and expense of the fight just became too much, right? And I went back from there. So what fight was he talking about? Consider the idea that society ought to force women to dress modestly in order to prevent rape. One counter-argument is that rapists don't really target women based on clothing, but a more powerful counter-argument is that irrespective of what the rapists do, women's rights should remain intact. If society robs women of their rights to bodily autonomy and self-expression based on the actions of rapists, even if it does so with the best intentions in the world, then society is practically doing the work of the rapists for them. So don't blame the tool, blame the criminal.
Well, yeah. What do you think about this? I mean, because I'm not convinced by that argument personally.
Okay, go ahead. Let's get into
it. Okay, all right. We're going a bit long, but so yes, in an ideal world, he will be correct. And that would be the case that, you shouldn't blame the tool is agnostic, right? But I think you have to look at the whole picture and not just the specific, not like all tools are good or all tools are bad. It's just, if there is a tool that was overwhelmingly being used for a particular thing, then that tool should not necessarily be banned, but like modified or changed or regulated or monitored or something. And then like with guns in the US, to be quite honest, like guns are overwhelmingly being used to kill people. I think it's kind of,
what do you mean?
For defense.
It's not guns, Peter. It's mental health. Have you not been paying attention?
Oh yeah, sorry. But like, yeah, it depends on the situation. There's too many other external factors that are involved in any particular thing. This is boiling it down to a point which is too simplistic, in my opinion.
So why?
Oh, by the way, this has nothing to do with women in clothes. I don't think that's a comparison.
Yeah, so I think the point he's trying to make is that like blaming Omegle for CSAM is like blaming women for not dressing more conservatively.
Yeah, I know, and I don't. That's why I don't like that argument. It's too simplistic.
So how is it different? And I don't necessarily disagree with you, but how is it different from what Twitter or Facebook do? If anything, this is more responsible, shutting it down because of the harm it does to society, which I guess really is the argument I've been making about social media anyway. So.
We should shut down Twitter. Yeah, actually, maybe. Sorry, X.
Yeah, Twitter, what?
So he made one other point in this, which resonated with me, which was that the fight. Okay, this is the bit there. All that said, the fight against crime isn't one that can ever truly be won. It's a never-ending battle that must be fought and refought every day. And even if you do the very best job it is possible for you to do, you may make a sizable dent, but you won't win in any absolute sense of that word. It's heartbreaking, but it's also a basic lesson of criminology, and one that I think that a vast majority of people understand on some level. Even superheroes, the fictional characters that our culture imbues with special powers as a form of wish fulfillment in the fight against crime, don't succeed at eliminating crime altogether. I mean, I think that last point is probably because, people are making money from making superhero comics, but like it's true. You can't win against crime. It's still going to keep happening and evolving. And, we're not going to have like, okay, CSAM's solved. We're going to have some measure or some technology that's going to like fix it all. So my impression that resonated with me, then maybe because I was focusing on that, the rest of it was like, this is an ongoing thing that's just too much hassle psychologically for him to keep dealing with. Also because the impression is that he's not winning, or Omegle wasn't winning. Like people's opinion is that 90% used by perverts in a lot of the discussions that I read. I didn't use it recently. And I know there was a time when it was more innocent, but like you mentioned, at a certain scale, this problem becomes much bigger. Like it's a logarithmic increase in abuse.
Yeah, and like I said at the beginning, as my exposure is seeing YouTubers who use Omegle for content creation, and obviously none of that comes across. Maybe that is a much smaller use case than I imagine, and the platform is just so fundamentally corrupt that it's unsalvageable. I guess I just don't know.
Yeah, we don't have enough information, but as a fundamental issue, content moderation, you're right, man. It's one of the hardest things on the internet, and it's because humans are terrible. We're just terrible, basically.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Agreed. Peter, you are absolutely right about that. And that's a bold statement coming from me.
I'm shocked. If anybody wants to see Mike agree with me more, subscribe now, because this happens every episode. We end up with Mike just saying, how correct you are, Pete.
Like every time.
I know.
Clockwork.
I know.